Today we're going to be talking about how we can animate the cat rig that we created in another video. And I know that I created a custom rig, but for the sake of the video and the ease of the animation, we went ahead and used the Alien, which is a pre-built rig inside of Cat. And if you haven't seen that other video on how to create a rig, how to add bones, remove bones, adjust the size of bones and whatnot, then I would recommend go ahead and look at that video so that this video will not be confusing. So if I click on any bone or whatever inside of our cat rig, inside of my motion tab, I'll see the layer manager. If I don't have an object selected, I don't, because it doesn't know what we're trying to look at. But if I click on anything that has to do with my cat rig, then I'll see that layer manager. And this is where we can add animations, and we can add different kind of animations, maybe global animations or local animations that override other animations. And that might seem a little confusing, but we'll go over that. So maybe, hopefully by the end of the video, it won't. So what I'm going to do is create a quick animation using cat motion. So I'm going to come down to our layers, the type of layers we can add. And I'm going to go down to the very bottom for cat motion. And I'm going to activate our cat motion. And now we'll see that our rig is walking. And I'm going to open the cat motion editor, which is the green circle with the green paw. And I'm going to choose a preset. So I'm going to go into, since this is a two-legged character, I'm going to go into two-leg. They have a couple, and you can find more of these online. You can find more presets online, but I'm just going to use what's there by default and use this creep, and I'm going to load it into the existing layer. I want to make sure that my animation timeline, my auto key, is turned off. And then here we can see we have some animation going on, but you can see that pop at the end where it pops from one position to another really quick. So let's go to globals, and I'm going to choose my end time, which is 30, and my max step time needs to match that, so we have a looping animation. Now we should see that we don't have that pop anymore. And since we're going to be talking about the animation itself, I'm not going to go over too much over the cat motion, which we covered in another video. So I'm going to say this is good. So from here, I have my cat motion layer. If I wanted to adjust this layer, there's a couple of different ways that I can do it. Again, I'm going to go to my layers and add layer, and I can either add a local layer or a world layer. And the difference is a local layer or a local adjustment layer will allow me to adjust my bones locally in their own local space. Now to do that, I'm going to click on my auto key to make it a little bit easier for me, but you do need to remember that you have your auto key on, because any parameter that you change with auto key on will automatically be animated. So I'm going to create a key at the beginning, and I'm going to create a key at the end. And the reason why I do that is because I still want to have that looping animation. So the frame at the beginning and the frame at the end need to match. Now if I wanted to adjust the first frame, I want to make sure that I have the last frame the same, or I'm going to have a pop. And what I mean by that is our poses are going to be different, and it's going to look like they pop into place. So this is what I'm talking about with the pop. So I want to make sure my first frame and my last frame are the same. So I could, if I wanted to, I could copy this frame for this bone and overwrite this one. And to do that, I'm going to select that frame and hold down my shift button. And if I mouse over my key, I'll see that I have the arrows. So I'm just going to click and drag my key over to the other one. And now I can see that not only did it overwrite that animation, but now we still have that loop. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that back kind of where it was, overwrite that animation, that frame, and then maybe here at 10, at 5, maybe he's going to look towards the camera. And I don't want it to be over time that he looks back towards the direction he was walking, so I'm going to copy that frame and maybe put it towards the end. So now he's looking at us for a while. And anytime that we go into that animation we see kind of looks away, then we can stop at a frame. We can have him look at the camera again. So So here we're kind of looking away. Maybe here we're kind of looking away. So now we're kind of looking at the camera the whole time. Okay? And because this is an adjustment layer, we can decide how much of that adjustment layer we want to be used. So what I mean by that is I have my global weight and my local weight. And well, let's do a little bit more so that we can see the difference, because with just one bone it'll look like we're doing the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this hand maybe, or maybe this entire arm, including the clavicle, and I'm going to create a key because I want them to be in the same position that they're in right now, even if we make an adjustment. So here, maybe right after he looks, maybe at frame 8, we want to bring this hand up. And sometimes, or for several things, if we come all the way down to the bottom, our digit manager, we have some presets, and we can save a preset if we want to. Let's say he's just going to do like a peace sign. So I can double click on that preset and it's already there. So we have that peace sign. Maybe again here, just going to take that arm, I have the same thing here. Rather, let's create a key. We'll copy that key. Okay. Then anywhere in between there, any adjustments that we want to make, we certainly can. There we go. Looks pretty good. Let's make sure our first and our last frame are the same, which our fingers, we can see our fingers pop in first frame. And then the last frame, we still have our peace sign. So let's select all of this and overwrite. There we go. Now we can see from the first frame and the last frame, we don't have any movement, which means they're in the same frame. And that will have that good looping action, which is what we want. So here, as we're walking, I'm doing a little peace sign. So from here, we can choose how much of that adjustment layer we want to use. So let's say we don't want that head to move. So I can select that head, and in the local weight, I can turn that local weight down to 0. And now we'll see that our hand still does, well, because the same thing that I said to do earlier with the auto key, I had it on, and now that local weight was animated instead of having it all the way. So I can turn that local weight down to 0 for the head. And we can see that the head doesn't do that look anymore, but the hand still does. So if I turn that local weight back up to 100, now we can see that our head looks. Maybe we want to, maybe that was too much. So instead of the local weight, we'll look at the global weight, and that's going to change that entire, everything on that layer, the head, the hand, everything. So we can see as I move that global weight, maybe I only want it to be 50% of what it was before, and it will do that. So now I've got 50% of the action that was going on, not 50% of the animation frames, but how much it is adjusted. Change that back to 100. Okay, so we talked about the cat motion layer, which we looked at in another video, and then we did an adjustment layer, a local adjustment layer. We can also do a world adjustment layer, and the difference is when we do a world adjustment layer, all of the bones, when we go to rotate them, they're rotated in world space instead of local space. So in local space, I could take the z-axis here and rotate it on a z-axis, but if I try that in world space, it's a little bit different. So that's really the only difference there, is how we can move our objects. Local is done in local space. World is done in world space. So if I like the animation the way it is, I can bake these down into its own separate layer. And that way I wouldn't have to have these two animation layers playing on each other. I could delete them if I wanted to, or I could keep them to adjust for something else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to collapse layers, and it's going to ask me frames per layer, start time and end time. So I'm going to say frames per sample. So right now what it would do is it would create a keyframe for every bone every 5 frames. I'm going to make that a little bit, maybe 2 frames. Then I'll click OK. Oh, geez, are you kidding me? So if I like what's going on here, what I can do is I can bake this down into its own layer. Instead of having to have the cat motion and then an adjustment layer, I can bake this into its own layer. So the first thing I'm going to do is choose an available layer, which here it says available. And then I'm going to go to collapse layers. And it's going to say how many frames per sample do you want. So 5 by default means it's going to, per bone, create a key per frame. And if you want to do 5, that's fine. Personally, I like to do a little bit more, so let's say maybe 2. So then we'll click OK. And it created a collapsed layer. Now you can name this whatever you want, so maybe we'll just name this adjusted walk layer. That's fine. And then I really don't even need these 2 anymore. If I wanted to, I could delete them. And we see that I still have that motion because I collapsed those layers. You do also have the option to copy a layer and paste a layer. So if we liked a layer and wanted to bring it down and make it another adjustment, then we could do that. We could copy it and paste it. So I know we have another video that's kind of long and it might be a little confusing the first time we watch it, but what I would recommend is to play around with our layers. It's a really, really powerful tool, and it's a way that we can get a lot of different animations really quickly. So maybe if we had an idle and we wanted the character to wave during one of the idles or maybe look left and right, then we can use that idle animation and then make adjustment animations and then bake those down so we can get quite a few animations in a short period of time. So play around with that and have a lot of fun.